Hello and welcome to another session covering topics on the Cisco DevNet Associate exam. Today we will go through Linux Bash. So we will start with what is Bash, and then we will go through directory navigation, and then we will take a look at basic file management with some demo as usual towards the end. So what is Bash? So Bash stands for Born Again Shell. And it is simply the interface between the user and operating system. So instead of relying on a GUI, you would interact with the OS directly. And the odds are you already have done this, whether you have used Bash or similar. If you have a Mac computer, for example, or even a Windows machine starting from Windows 10. And I have to say that if you are a Linux user, then I am almost sure this session is too basic for you, and you would know enough on this topic, if not more. So for the rest of the session, I'll be using my Mac machine to demonstrate some of the basic operations relevant to the Cisco DevNet Associate exam. And by the way, Mac default shell is Z shell. So Bash is not the only shell out there. So if you wanted to see which shells are supported on your machine, the command would be cat etc and then shells. I can see that Bash is supported, and I can see C shell is also supported. And if you wanted to change shells, the command will be change shell -s bin, and then whatever you want to change to. So for example, I will go for Bash. And then here I'll have to put in my password. So no changes have been made because I'm already on Bash. Let's change to the default C shell. And then this has changed, but it won't take effect until I have restarted the terminal. So I'll quit the terminal and restart it. And here I can see that the default interactive shell is now Z shell. So the change has taken place. So the first thing we will talk about before we start talking about navigation is the structure of Linux, which is based on a directory tree structure. So it starts, as you can see, on the root. And then you follow down on the leaves where you have different folders, and you drill down further where you will have files. So essentially in Linux or Unix, everything is files. So these are some of the folders that you should be familiar with, starting by bin, which is the essential binaries. And then you got your home folder, this is your own space where you will have your scripts and any documents that are related to you. Then you have your etc folder, which is host specific system configuration. Then you have your sbin, which is the system binaries. And then you have your mount folder, which is the mounted file system. And then you have your libraries. You have your temporary folder and your variables folder. So everything in Linux is actually files and folders. So here the important thing to recap or to note is that starting from the root, which is defined by this /, you can navigate to other folders, create or modify files. And here you have to get familiar with the concept of path. So you can't just try to modify, for example, this cat file. You can't just jump into it. You actually need to specify the path for it. So that would be your /, and then where is this file located? Is under this folder, so you need to specify the binaries folder, and then finally cat as a file. So there's a drill down process that needs to take place, and essentially you need to stick to this tree structure. And to navigate, you need to use certain commands. These are probably the commands that you will be using the most. You'll be using cd, which is change directory. So using this command, you'll be moving from one directory to the other, up and down. ls will list the content of the directory, whether it's files or folders within that directory. If you add a -a, you will see all the files, including the hidden files. If you add a -l, you will see all the permissions of these files and folders. And if you use -F, it will display the files and directories and show you which ones are what. So if it's a file, it will be a file. If it's a folder, it will have the / with it. And then you have cat, which stands for concatenate. And this allows you to view or create files. And then make directory, obviously to create a directory. And then cp, which is for copying. So you'll be copying files, for example. mv for moving files. And rm for removing a file. And if you're removing a folder and you want to remove the content of the folder, you have to use the rf also. So one of the commands that I have not mentioned is primary working directory, pwd, and this essentially shows you your path or the folder you are at. So hit return, and I can see that I'm in my home directory and in a folder called GitHub. So from here, I would like to get to a directory called DevNet. And then if I want to list the content of this directory, ls. And then what I would like to do is to see all my files and the permissions. As you can see here, you can see read, write, write and write, and so forth. And I would like to see if there are any hidden files. So the hidden files are these ones with a dot in front. You can also combine the two options. I can use -l or -l -a. And here I can also see the permission on the hidden files, for example. And the last thing is, I'll show you a command which allows me to declutter my screen so it's clear. I'll just change the settings so you can see it better. Here we are. So if I type clear and enter, my screen is clear. And then let's take a look at ls-F, which shows me the files, and it also shows me what are the folders on this folder. I can combine it. And again, I can see that this is a folder called configs. So let's try to create a directory. We call it NL for Networks Learning. Now, if I do a list, I can see that my directory has been created, and I would like to hop into that directory. So change directory to directory NL. I would like to verify my path, primary working directory, and I can see that I'm in GitHub DevNet. I'm in the directory I just created. So here, say for example, I want to create a file. There's two ways I can do it. There are more, but I can either use touch, and I will call it file1. If I do an ls, my file is listed. I create another file in a different way. Remember I mentioned the command cat for concatenate. I can use this to create a file. So that would be file2. And I can write line 1, for example. Now I've got my two files. Trying all the options, file 1 and file 2. And then say, for example, I want to modify file 2. There are different editors. I prefer to use Nano. And for the simple reason, is because I like it and I'm used to it. If you have been configuring Cisco XR boxes, you will know that Nano is very similar to when you are making changes to your RPL, for example, and your policies. So got line 1, I go down and add line 2. Line 3. And then I exit, press yes, confirm the name of the file. If I want to view that file using cat file 2, and these are the lines that I have added. So I've cleared my screen, decluttered my screen, ls again. Say for example, I want to copy file 1. And I want to call it or rename it file 3. Actually, let's copy file 2 because it has some lines in it. If I do ls, then my file 3 has been created. And is a replica or a copy of file 2. Now, let's step back one level up. So this is my path again. I would like to go back to this folder here. So it's change directory space double dot. So this will take you one level up, just to confirm that. So now looking at my files, I would like to move this file R1 to the NL folder. So that would be MV for move R1 NL. And then I'll drill down to the NL folder. And I can see that my R1 file is now sitting on this folder. And if I wanted to move it back here, I have to be a little bit careful because I have to specify the path. So where am I? This is my path. And I would like it to be moved to one level up to DevNet. So I copy this path. And it's R1, and I'll specify the path. If I do an ls, I can see that R1 has disappeared. And then if I go one level up, I can see that my R1 is back. Now let's drill down again to the NL folder to try one of the last commands. So say for example, I want to get rid of this file 3. That would be remove file 3. So once again, these are the commands that you will be using most of the time. And this brings us to the end of this session. So I hope this video has been informative, and as usual, any questions or comments are always welcome. And the next video will cover software version control. In our case, it will be Git. Thank you for watching.